Morning, everyone. Thank you, Jonetta, and thanks for having me here today. Question before we even get any further. The presentations that you just gave, by a show of hands, how many of you were nervous when you gave them?
I was.
Okay, so some feedback about that from just one person. I could not tell. I could not tell. So maybe some of you started off a little shaky, but that's life. You're human. We're all humans, and that's what we do. But honestly, I could not tell. And what I can tell you from the professional speaking circuit is that people who book people like me, and maybe you for conferences and conventions and stuff, the feedback is they don't want a speaker that's very slick, that's very experienced, that just does it in their sleep. They want people who can get up and just share their story, who they are. And if they start out trembling, that's quite all right. As a matter of fact, starting out that way draws the audience in more because you're starting out with a real emotion. It's not, hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Landau, which can really be off-putting. But if you start soft from the heart instead of from the head, you draw your audience in. So interesting how, because I can really watch this type of stuff, how I did not detect that you were nervous when you were speaking. How is that? And what is the message of that? What does that say about the topic of fear of public speaking? Maybe it says that it's all internal instead of external. And if it is all internal, I would ask you this: how real, on the grand scale of things, is your fear of public speaking? The answer, it's only as real as you choose to make it. I have understood in my life, and I'll share a little bit of it with you now, that fear is natural. Fear is good, fear is okay, there's nothing wrong with fear. Where it starts to upset the balance a little is when you identify with the fear you're feeling to the point where you end up becoming that fear. So it's a question of not becoming the fear, but just being aware that fear exists within you. And if you can stand aside from it in that way and just be aware of it, instead of actually becoming it, then you can acknowledge that it exists, and then you can just move on. Move on. There are always bumps in the road. You can't go back and repair them. You just hold onto the wheel a little harder until you just get to a smoother part of your journey, which is what each one of you did this morning. And really, congratulations on each one of your presentations, because what you did was you shared a part of you. What I felt was you were speaking from your heart. And I also loved how you used volume, whether you realized it or not, to draw the audience in. And by that I mean you might have started out on this level and then you kind of went like that. And you know what happened when I actually went to the deer stand and we saw nature? Play with it. But you can still have fear inside. That's okay. So here's just a little bit of my story. As a kid, as a teen, you could not get me up in front of two people and speak. And if that ever happened, which it did, I would have absolutely melted in fear. I could not have done a 30-second presentation like all of you just did. Why? The origin of one's fear, I have found, is usually something personal that may have happened to you earlier in life. And I can say that because that was the case with me. I was heavily teased and bullied all the way through elementary school and all the way through junior high school. And it was just for being me. My parents came from Eastern Europe, and at the time wasn't aware of how raising kids in the States might have been a little different than doing the same from where they came from. And so they dressed me in very bright clothes. And I remember waiting for the bus to go home from elementary school, and 6 busloads of kids who were waiting for their buses to take them home would stand around me in a circle and just jeer at me because I was wearing colorful clothing. What happened with that for me internally is I took who they were seeing me as and saw myself through their eyes, instead of choosing to see who I really was through my eyes. And so I began to think that there was something wrong with me. And every time I would be in a group of people, I would really be self-conscious, my mind chatter. I'm sure you're not aware of what mind chatter is with you at all, right? My mind chatter would go crazy, and by the time I would get up and speak, I could not. So what did I do? Psychologically, it'll sound like I worked against myself. But actually, psychologically, I chose to take a negative and turn it into a positive. I decided with that fear, paralyzing fear, insecurity, lack of self-esteem, I mean, I was a real case, to become an actor. Wow, isn't that a polar opposite? So I started acting in high school and started to do well at it, but I was still terribly nervous. But then, when I graduated college, I lived very close to New York City, where I'm originally from. And I moved into the city to become an actor. And what did I do? I enrolled in New York City's most avant-garde acting school in those days. The last thing I should have done based on my fear that I was still carrying. What was a typical day in this school like? They would bring us to a Broadway theater and seat us in the orchestra section. And then the teacher would ask you to get up on stage. So he would say, "Robert, could you get up on stage, please?" And I would get up on the stage, and he would say, "Okay, this is what I want you to do. I want you to be a tree in the winter. It is 40 degrees below zero, and you have a foot of ice on your branches. You are cold. You are angry. Through sound and movement only, Robert, show us how you feel. Go." And for somebody who was so totally inhibited, that was a disaster for me. So why would I do that to myself? And how did I get through that exercise, those days, those weeks, those months in the working theater school in New York City? I just did it. I just did it. There was something within me that knew I needed to be there. And as scared as I was, I acknowledged it. I said, "Okay, I don't know if I can do this." And then I was at a fork in the road, because one way I could choose was, and choice is the operative word here. One way was to say, I give up, I resign, I'm out of the school, forget acting, I'm going to go be something else in New York City. But the other way was, just keep your feet on the path. One step at a time, even if it's just a half an inch, creates the biggest waves of change. And so I became my own best friend instead of my own worst enemy. It's a choice. It's okay to have fear. It's part of being alive. If we didn't have fear, we wouldn't be alive. But the question is how you choose to manage fear. And it has to do with belief. It has to do with faith. Can you get through a 20-minute speech in front of 1,000 people? Think about that right now. So say next month you have an assignment, and each one of you has to get up in front of 1,000 people in this hall right across here and speak. How does that make you feel right now? Anxious? Well, you want to crawl under a rock, right. What else? I saw your face when I first said it.
I'd
Yes. But see, listen to the words that she chose to use. It would be awful. I would sweat. So what she's doing, and what all of you are doing, is you're going to a future event based on fear which has not happened yet. And you are doing such an enormous discredit to yourselves because you just proved to me that you can get up and do this. It doesn't matter how many people are there. You have to remain true to who you are and your story, no matter what you're speaking about. And as Bette Midler says, and I'll paraphrase here, because we're at Lone Star College, she says, the hell with them if they can't take a joke. I spoke at a conference of nurses 2 weeks ago in Houston at a huge Marriott. And it was a one-day conference, and every hour from like 8:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon, they had a different speaker come in, right? And I looked at the agenda. I was the closer from 4:30 to 5:30, and I'm thinking, great. They're not going to want to stay to hear me. It's rush hour. They're going to want to get up and leave as soon as I start. And what was my topic? You are the captain of your ship. Now that's based after I was an actor, and I decided not to become an actor anymore because I didn't like to represent what the acting roles were asking me to do on stage and screen, like murder 16 people and Halloween 6 and so on and so forth. So I actually wound up on cruise ships, dancing with single ladies, over 300 of them on my first cruise. For 3 weeks, I replaced the socializer who had to get off that ship for jury duty. It was great for me because I could get out of New York City, clear my head, and figure out what I wanted to do next. And once I got on that ship, I thought, cruise directing. I can use my acting talent, whatever that might be, but certainly my training. I can see the world. That's what I want to do. I didn't know how I was going to get there, but I had this vision in my head of cruise directing on ships that would call at remote ports of call in Asia, going up the Amazon, South America, Africa, you name it, right? Did not know how I was going to get there, but I felt as if I was already there. So I set the intent up kind of like what you do when you pray, because you don't know how it's going to happen. You just believe through faith that it will, because you bring the offering to the table and then step back and let something else work out the steps for you. And that's what I did. I became a cruise director 3 years later. I was an assistant cruise director for 3 years. Cruise directing happened to me 3 years after I first set foot on a ship, and it turned out to be an incredible 10-year career as a cruise director, 300 ports of call on close to 400 cruises. And I'm here to tell you it's an incredible world out there, and no matter what we look like, what we choose to believe, we're all the same. We're all the same. That's a whole nother presentation. But I learned a lot, basically about myself. And I learned this: we're only here for 2 minutes. Why not choose to make it the best 2 minutes possible? So, if you have fear when you get up there and speak, it's okay. And here are some ways that help me with fear. And then I want to talk to you about it. I want you to ask me questions, whatever you like. I believe in affirmations. And what I do, I'm a big positive thinker person. You know, whatever that means to people nowadays, it really works. It's like a prayer. If you set your intent by praying for something, then believe it will be given to you in one way, shape, or form. And that's what I do. Before every presentation, even that nurse's one, I say to myself, I am a communicator. I am a communicator. I know that's one of the reasons why I'm here on this planet right now, because we need more people who communicate in this type of a form or just one-on-one. And I said that with those nurses because you know what the topic of the guy was who spoke before me at 3:30 when I was supposed to go on at 4:30. His topic was the Zika virus. And the topic before that at 2:30 was new ways to combat terminal cancer. Now, of course, these are valid topics for 200 nurses who need to learn more about what's current, right? But I'm thinking, here I am, closing the day with this Cinderella presentation about my cruise director years called You Are the Captain of Your Ship, and my mind chatter, I allowed my mind chatter to get the best of me. And I'm standing back there listening to the Zika doctor say, don't even go out of your house. Don't even get out of bed because those mosquitoes are in your house. You can't have sex with anyone. And I just felt the whole energy of the room. And I'm thinking, oh, they're going to love little me in my little cruise director outfit going, hi, everyone. You are the captain of your ship. But then I started to use the mantra, right? I turned a negative into a positive in here. Because just like with you, your fear when you were just speaking was all internal. There was nothing external about it. I couldn't see or feel a trace of it on you. And I did the same with me. I am a communicator. I'm a communicator. They're going to be lifted by what I say. And I left it at the altar, and I trusted that that would happen. And then I hear my name being introduced, and I'm on. Not one nurse got up and left. As a matter of fact, they stayed after that hour was through. And it was a great success. Why? Because I chose it to be so. Even though I was fearful of it, and I let my mind chatter work against me concerning it, it turned out to be a success. How does that happen? So what I'm saying to you is, don't think fear is bad. Don't think it's anything that needs to be exercised, right? Learn to manage it. Mantras, affirmations, right? When you wake up in the morning, maybe a week before you have a presentation to give, say to yourself before you get out of bed, I can already feel that when I present, it's going to be just great. No matter what happens, I will make it through, and I will live to see another day. Right? And if you start talking to yourself that way, it really starts to change things on the outside. True change only starts from within. And once you started there, it is only then that you will start to see it on the outside. It doesn't work the other way. You know, we're so conditioned in this society to say, well, you know what? I'm going to believe that when I see it. It's really the other way around. You got to believe it first, and then you will see it, right? But you are the only ones who can make that choice. So, mantras, and you know what you're going to have happen when you start to work positively with yourself in this type of a way? Your mind chatter is going to come in and say, well, what happens if I don't start right? What happens if I can't breathe? What happens if somebody's looking at me like that, you know? Mind chatter is a part of your life. It's a part of who you are, right? It's like this unruly child of yours that keeps pulling on your pant leg or dress, saying, Mommy, Mommy, I want attention. Listen to me. So rather than go there with your mind chatter, as if it were a child, just acknowledge it because it's a part of you. You gave birth to it and you love it. And say, I hear what you're saying. I love you. I'm moving forward now. And that gets you back into the present moment. You might have seen the little clip that Jonetta put on your Facebook page about what I was saying about fear at a seminar I facilitated just 2 weeks ago. To me, fear stands for F-E-A-R, future events appearing real. Future events appearing real. And what is the operative word there? Appearing. Because just like you all went to some imaginary, horrific place in the future when I said, you know what, next week, each one of yous is going to get up and have to speak before 1,000 people in that hall. You left the present and you went to a future possibility that you created in your head that doesn't really exist. And then what happened was your mind, your brain, your cells bought into that vision that you painted of your future, and it started to produce a reaction. Sweat, heartbeat, the voice not being able to come out right. That's all stuff you're doing to yourself that doesn't need to be there. When you start doing that to yourself, be loving to yourself, be aware of it, and say, okay, I'm fearful. Next. Next. Don't stay there too long. Make the choice not to stay there too long, because if you do, you're going to become the fear that you created that isn't even real. Another really great thing is when you speak, and few people think about this, posture. Posture. Your energy has to come, well, through you to speak out, and up from here to speak out. And if you're standing, and this is profile, if the audience is here, if you're standing like this, it can't come out. You're stopping the energy from coming up and out, and you're blocking it, which will also cause nerves. So even, when we walk just down that hall, how many of us actually walk, like this, with our shoulders up? We're used to just protecting ourselves from everything. No, posture is great. Listen to my voice when I stand like this. Now I'm really trying to communicate with you. And listen to my voice when I stand like this. It's a huge difference, and it's a subtle thing that you can do that really goes far. The other thing, and I've heard you say it this morning, and you've probably heard it before, is breath. When you hear yourself being introduced, breathe. And I'm talking about the deep type of breathing that opera singers and Broadway stars are trained to do, which is breathing from a place below your belly button, the lower abdomen, right? And how I was trained as an actor, because in those Broadway theaters, they would put us on the stage and we would have to whisper so that our whisper could be heard in the last row of the very last balcony. And what you do with that is you take a deep breath through your nose so that you feel that your lower abdomen is being filled up. And you just do a number of deep breaths. This is what people do when they start to meditate too. And that automatically calms you down. And you know what else it does? It returns you to the present moment instead of fear of a future impossibility. Breath, the energy of breath, is always here and now. There is no future in breath. There is no past in breath. So when your mind goes here and when your mind goes there, you can leave these two places or one of them by choosing to just focus and be aware of your breathing process. Even when you're speaking, because I like to speak in a lot of big places without a microphone, and so I was trained as an actor to be able to do that, so that you fill your voice so that it hits the back wall of the space you're speaking. But even if you start to feel yourself going hoarse after speaking a while, if you focus your breathing from down here, you can get through it. If you watch Luciano Pavarotti, right, the great famous opera tenor, who we lost a number of years ago, watch him live on stage sometime. Or any opera singer, you'll see them between phrases that they have to sing, they'll go, and what they're doing is they're taking a quick breath through their nose to fill this up. How can you, on a stage like the Metropolitan Opera House in New York City, sing in front of 5,000 people and an orchestra of 100 people and be heard in the last row of the last balcony without a mic for an opera that goes 2 or 3 hours. Breathing, breathing. It's your anchor. It'll get you through anything. Even if you're sitting in traffic and you're 10 minutes late from where you need to be, and you start to get all freaked out because your mind chatter is working, and you're going to the future because your mind chatter says, oh, they're going to kill me when I get there. I was told I can't be 10 minutes late to work last week, and look what's happening now. I'll be fired. I'll be fired. I'll be out of work for months. You're going to the future again. Acknowledge that you did. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. But then return back to the present through your breath. So, have a couple of more tips for you too, but I wanted to leave time for you to ask me questions. What really scares you about speaking? What hurdles have you not been able to overcome yet? Or anything else you wanted to talk about?
I have a problem with I'm speaking and then I get so nervous that I forget where I was. I kind of lost my place and I don't want to look silly in front of the audience, and so I kind of get freaked out.
Okay, did you hear what she said? That's okay. I lose my place all the time.
Yeah. Oh.
But the thing is, again, don't make the choice to get freaked out. It's a natural thing. I mean, people who have their speeches on teleprompters screw it up. The Academy Awards get screwed up, and they're live, beamed to billions of people around the country. It's okay. You're human. And I'll tell you something, just like you proved to me and yourselves this morning, if you happen to lose your way, it's very likely that no one in the audience will know unless you choose to go with the emotion of now losing it. You know, of now losing your way. It's okay. It's like if you fall, if you trip going down that hallway, you're not going to stay down and go, why did this happen to me? Oh my God, the rest of my day is ruined. No, you pick yourself up and you dust yourself off and you move on. Don't let that stop you. All kinds of, look, as a cruise director, I became very polished in handling things at the moment. I was trained that way as an actor also through improvisation. But I mean, here you are on this beautiful, huge, luxurious ship, and it's showtime, and I'm coming out to MC it, and the lounge is full of 2,000 people, and as I'm bringing out an act, one lady in the 10th row, a passenger, stands up because she's over-inebriated, and she goes, "You don't even know what you're doing or saying. You stink." What do? In front of 2,000 people, you have just been demoralized by someone who's not even aware what they're saying. You pick up and you move on. That's it. That's it. So when that happens, stay present. Don't worry about what they're thinking, because everybody is thinking a different thing. And don't even go there. What you need to do is almost think like you're in a box. You're in a box up there. And nothing exists around the box. And all you have to do is just tell your story, speak on your topic, and then leave their reaction to what it is. Dr. Wayne Dyer, who we lost last year, brilliant, brilliant speaker who always spoke from the heart. He once said, you know what, I speak to thousands and thousands of people a number of times every month. And I always know that in every audience, I'll never be able to satisfy people 100%. There's always going to be a sea of people who just don't resonate with what I'm saying, maybe the way I look, who knows what. And that's okay. That's them. I'm not here to please them. I am here to share my story from my heart. No matter how it comes out, no matter if I lose my way, no matter if my voice trembles, I'm going to share my story from A to Z. And to hell with them if they can't take a joke. That's your goal, right? Every day in life, that should be your goal. No matter what happens to me today, I'm going to make it through. It's going to be fine. Do that with speaking also. It's a process, speaking. There'll never be a day or a time when you've fully arrived. And isn't that the same with life, right? They always say about life and speaking and fear of public speaking, it's the journey, not the destination. But it's how you choose to process all of that stuff on your way that makes all the difference, not only in your world, but the world. So what else happens with fear? Someone was, yes?
You said moving around.
Huh?
Moving around action. You've done a great job expressing with your hands.
So you're fearful of moving around when you speak?
Not so much fearful as that I'm just not doing it.
Oh, but you don't have to. Here's what I would say. When I show up for a speaking engagement and they're telling me that I have to stand behind a podium and just stay there, I don't like that. But I'll tell you why I don't like it, because it's not me. I'm a New Yorker. We can't stay still for a minute, right? But see, it's key to who you are and your personality. So if we were giving the same speech on the same topic, and I chose to move around during mine, and you stood right here and gave yours, why wouldn't yours be just as effective as mine because I was moving around and you weren't? Look, I could feel what you were saying today when you spoke. To me, it didn't matter. I didn't even notice. Nothing said to me, oh, well, he could be even more effective with his message if he moved around. No. Sometimes just standing still is very, very important and very effective. And you know what? It's not the physical part of what happens when you speak. It's the message from your heart. It's the message from your heart. And it can be just as powerful staying in one place all the time, not even moving your arms. Silence when you speak is very effective. Example. Something really heartbreaking happened to me yesterday. And if it's okay with you,
Yes.
I really feel like I want to share that with you now. So I was driving on I-4, okay, you see the silence, how very impactful and important that is. Sometimes it's the simplest of things that create the most power. And that can be silence, using silence effectively. That can be just standing in one place. Bob Fosse, one of the greatest choreographers we've ever had, Broadway and film, he knew the power of making things very simplistic through movement. It didn't have to be these grandiose ballet lifts and throwing people around. He would have a spotlight on one of his dancers going like this on their hip. And the spotlight was just here, like that, to the music. Very little movement, incredibly powerful. Does that help? Yeah. What else? Yeah.
In my case, I'm very conscious of having an accent because English is not my first language.
Right.
So I get so anxious. Oh, what if they don't understand it? What if, so I get like, and then all the words goes away from my mind, when I'm trying to get them.
So, did you hear what she said? Listen to the word she's choosing to use, because it's exactly what we're talking about here. She says that when she's speaking, she's very conscious of her accent. And even maybe before she speaks, they're the what ifs. What if they don't understand me? What if they all look at me like this, or they start whispering, what did she say? What did she say? What if, what if, what if? Based on what we're talking about here, what are you doing? What is she doing?
Mind chatter.
Mind chatter, which means she's going to the future to an improbable possible, which is not helping you in the present. You're here, right now, accent and all. You were meant to be here. That's not a mistake. You have something you can share from your heart that nobody else has. And it has to do with the energy of your accent and the culture where you come from. Be proud of who you are. Not everybody's going to understand me when I speak with an American accent. You know, just if we could feel confident within ourselves close to 100% of the time, you would model that, right? If I came in here and I had a terrible thing happen to me, a big argument before I left home this morning, right? And I was carrying that anger in here, you would feel it, even before I would open my mouth, right? But if I say mantra-wise, I'm a communicator, no matter how I'm received this morning, the message will get across. It is. It's happening. Do the same. Be proud that you are who you are because you wouldn't want to be anything different. Why give up a part of yourself just to please somebody else? You see?
I just like what you said about make it the best 2 minutes or the best 20 minutes that you can.
Yeah. Yeah. With a speech, if you have a 5-minute speech to give and you lose your way and you feel you don't move around enough or you feel your accent is maybe not communicating enough, so what? Keep going. And again, you cannot fool me. Because when you gave your presentations this morning, just about all of you admitted you were nervous, and it didn't show. So it's in your head. Thanks, everyone.